All right, welcome to this edition of the People's Playbook. In this episode, I'm pretty hyped because Ed Hansen's joined us for this edition, and Ed has been a veteran entrepreneur. I would like to call him that, and a coach for over 30 years. So started in the landscaping industry, but even when he ran his businesses, it was all about coaching people to him, getting the best team developed so he can make that business thrive. And then he actually transferred over to tech, the executive committee, to become a chair, and he coaches presidents and CEOs from around the country. And on top of that, not that he's actually looking for more things to do in a day, he also is the president of the Landscape of Ontario. So I'm pretty stoked to get into this episode today. With that intro, let's get at it. Ed, welcome to the podcast.
Jason, honestly, thank you so much for having me here. I feel super blessed that you'd even think of me. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Not just think of you, but one of the first people that came to our mind. And when Matt started diving into kind of what you do, he was just like, yeah, we got to get it on right away. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to bring you back 30 some odd years ago when you started getting into the landscaping business. Get your mind back there right now. And what was it that first kind of sparked your interest in saying, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, but more so, maybe not just an entrepreneur, but I actually want to tackle this business called landscaping and getting into that sector. How did that all start?
It's interesting you ask because I've done like this crazy deep dive on, in my coaching world is more like what makes a difference between an entrepreneur and a business person and like how do you get to certain places. If I'm mega honest, I think when I first started, I think it was a mistake. Like I think I legitimately just started, my parents didn't give me money, so I had to make money. So for me to make money, that meant walking across the street and cutting Mrs. Casey's lawn. And
Yeah.
cutting Mrs. Casey's lawn wasn't good enough because I wasn't making enough, so I had to cut Mrs. Jones' lawn. And then Mrs. Jones was good, and I wasn't making enough money from that, so I had to go cut, Mr. Ritchie's lawn. And honestly, that's how it started. Like, and I yeah, my parents didn't give me anything. Like they didn't say here is like allowance like some kids. Like I don't know. I just I think that's my parents. They just installed that you want to make money, you want to thrive, you want to make extra money. I mean, my parents. I'm not knocking them. They didn't not
Totally
give
get it.
me,
Yeah.
but they legitimately just you want to make something, go get it. So I did, and I never thought when I started. I never thought like 35 years later I would have sold a multi-million dollar landscape company ever. Like
Yeah.
my original thought was, hey, I need some money, and because I was so heavily involved in sports, I couldn't really have a job that was a normal job. And I say that because, you're going to tell me that I have to work during this time and this time. And like I had to go training or I had practice or something like
Yeah.
that. So it just didn't work. But I wasn't afraid of work. I would have worked 24 hours a day. Still sometimes think I do. A bit
Yeah.
of a Clydesdale. So happy to be like that.
You said about your parents there, and I find a lot with entrepreneurs and people that had to work for it, and they had to almost take the stairs, not the elevator, right? And I find, have you ever gone back and said, "Hey, thanks to your mom and dad," and said, "You know what? They probably almost." It's not like they maybe not planned it and they just said, "Hey, we don't have the resources right now to do this." But did you ever think, wow, am I ever lucky based on what they did to install this drive in me to actually get me to where I am today?
I'm going to be so vocal about this and tell you that if it wasn't for my dad, I don't think I'd be where I am today. And my mom too, but in a different capacity. Imagine in the mid 80s, my dad, we had two cars and there was a clipboard on each side of the garage. You want to take the car out? Take the clipboard, sign out your kilometers. How many kilometers did you drive when you were out? Make sure you put it back on the same radio station, hang it back up, and at the end of the month, you got a bill, an invoice for your insurance, your fuel, and your depreciation on the vehicle. This is no joke. I'm
This is
16. This is
great.
happening.
Yeah.
So at one point, I'm like, you know, I'm charging my friends. So I started charging my friends a couple of bucks every time I went out for a ride. Well, I became the designated driver, but I was also like taking money, right?
Yeah.
So these are things of how you kind of get that entrepreneurial spirit. And in that next step to that, I didn't want to follow my dad's rules anymore. So I wanted to go buy my own car. I bought my own car when I was the tail end of 16 turning 17 that summer because I didn't want to follow that hang up the clipboard.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have
I,
your own clipboard with your friends? They'd sign a clipboard when they came into your car?
no, but every single staff member, think about it. When they left work, they signed out how many kilometers the vehicle was, and they signed back in. Like
Yeah.
these were no brainer, hardcore business rules. Really, my dad was, he grew up in a rural community farming,
Sure.
and my mom grew up in a rural community with a dad who was a fisherman. So it's not, these are common things, small town folk, right? Like there's no, big city, here it is, go get it. Like you want it, go get it.
Yeah.
So, and I think also too, I'm realizing more as an adult now that I'm not really built to follow rules. I was never really built to like, this is the exact way you're supposed to do things. I'm not good with that.
No.
Doesn't work.
You want to make the rules. You don't want or break other people's rules, but make your own rules along the way, right?
Yeah, and actually something I've learned very much so is when you set parameters for your team and you lay out the parameters, like, you have to put 6 pieces of pepperoni per slice or, whatever those are. I think more have to help your team learn what rules they can break more than what rules they have. Because you get Mrs. Jones who really wants to make sure you cut the back lawn before the front for some unknown reason. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
Well, is that a rule you want to break to make her happy and keep her as a client or not? I mean, so you just have to learn, I think, those things that, kind of are okay to break and still be okay.
I love it. If you look back, so speaking about teams and rules to break and, just the whole conversation we're getting into right now, if you kind of look at your leadership style from when you started to where it is now, how has that evolved over the last 36 plus years?
I think I didn't understand leadership styles because there was no such thing back then. Like nobody had, was able to break them out. You're a people first leader. You're a dictator. Like nobody had that in sort of scope and scale back then. However, I would say that I originally thought that I was a leader by doing. I thought that I had to get out in front of everybody and, be the doer and be the best at everything and so forth. I evolved to realize that that is not the case. I think that as great as I was at certain aspects in my landscape company, there were other people who were way better at me at their jobs. And I think it's because I gave them the space and the freedom to do so.
Okay.
And the environment and the caring environment, whether they like to think it or not, the caring environment to say, look, learn what you're doing and get good at it while I worry about all the other problems. Like I shielded them from whether or not we could make payroll or whether or not we could do that. Now there's a cost to your mental health on that probably in the early years. But yeah, I think over time I realized that I was a better leader from behind than I was from the front.
Yeah. Did it take you a while to give that trust and learn that, hey, I'm not going to be able to do this all myself and I'm going to have to delegate and I'm going to have to kind of do that from behind as opposed to, because I find that's, with
I would liken this to a wolf pack. And in a wolf pack, if you ever watch a pack walk somewhere or go somewhere, the eldest or the most mature go to the front and the leaders are at the back and they go at the pace of the pack and they push the pace when it's needed and they slow the pace when it's needed. Not at the front. They leave the wisest up at the front, let them do their thing, let them be the statespeople. And I think that that's, even like I go back to that, but I didn't think that was the case. I thought the case at first, I had to just put out fires and be the biggest, superhero and all that kind of stuff. But it comes at a serious cost, like a very serious cost to your mental well-being, your physical well-being.
Sure.
But you don't realize it when you're in the bubble. Like you're taking all this shrapnel and you just keep taking it and taking it and taking it. You're not doing anybody any favors.
Yeah.
By running around putting out fires, you don't actually help anybody. You actually hurt your team by not. Like I'll give you a great example. In the early years, customer would call.
Yep.
And they would be dissatisfied. Your guys were here. They did this. They did this. They did this. Oh, not a problem, ma'am. I would go right away and fix the problem. I would just deal with the problem. And because I didn't want to upset my team, I wouldn't even tell them what they did wrong. I would just go and fix the problem.
Okay.
I'd bring tools around with me. I'd fix things. And then I realized, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm never training them to learn not what even my expectations were, but what the client's expectations were. And it was a major problem in the early
Yeah.
years. Until I realized that that was the case, I think that was a big game changer for my leadership style, though, to realize, okay, whoa, I'm not doing something bad by shielding them. I'm
Yeah.
helping them by telling them, hey, this is what Mrs. So-and-so has a problem with. Can we make sure to like make her happy and not have that happen again?
Yeah.
I think that also happens a lot when you do installations in the construction side of landscape.
Sure.
Not everybody, some people don't like cuts a certain way on an install, or they don't like
Sure.
a certain method, or they don't like when you like leave a dirty work site afterwards. They hate it. Can't lie, so do I.
Yeah.
But yeah, why do you want to teach that? Why do you want to teach that method? You have to have reasons. You also have to listen to your team and figure out what they want to do. And then if there's no reason why they can't do it, maybe you want to stand in front of them and make sure that they can do it or get better at it until they learn enough to master their own ways and master their own ideas.
I love that. Yeah. And it's, when I talk to leaders from around the world, they say some similar things to what you're saying. And it's funny once they realize that, and I know this might sting a bit, but sometimes we're the bottleneck as a leader, right? Yeah, and sometimes when we actually say, hey, wait a second, I'm going to delegate that a little more, or I'm going to put trust in that person, we actually start making more money, right? And we improve the culture of our organization, and people like working for us a lot more than they did in the past when we give that trust.
In that I didn't learn this until later in my sort of leadership life was, when I first read Michael Gerber's E-Myth, I think I legitimately fell off my chair and I was like, oh my God, this is me.
Yeah.
And then kind of next level of that, I know you're a tech member too. So in tech, we all learn about, EOS and the,
Sure.
Gene Wickman and the traction and all that. And I'm not saying you have to follow that either, because there's components of it that some people like and don't like. But once you realize that you are the problem,
Yeah.
you need to get rid of things that you're not good at. And not even that you're not good at, that you bottleneck. Imagine in my early stages of my business, I used to put a sign on every work order. And back then they were paper and we write on
Yeah.
them. And I wrote, Ask Ed. I wrote it on every work order. Ask Ed. Could you imagine now
Yeah.
writing down ask whoever, ask Bob, ask Sue?
Yeah.
Like,
Poor Ed,
it's
poor Bob,
insane.
poor Sue,
So
right?
poor Ed, it was like, hey, we're here. What do we do? Oh my God. Don't get me wrong. Times have changed dramatically.
Sure.
Technology to get us away from that now
Yeah.
too. But yeah, live and learn. And I actually think there's another component too. And I think is maybe not me as a coach or other coaches, but some coaches think they have all the answers, and I don't think that's the job of a coach. I don't think. I mean, yes, for strategic direction, things like that, maybe, but I think you got to let people ride their own wave.
Sure. Make mistakes. Make some calls along the way. Yeah.
Make mistakes. Mistakes are mistakes and quote unquote failure. One thing that I've been really focusing on recently is fail to succeed. And sometimes I think that if you fail, you want to fail properly, because if you fail and you learn from it, such a development tool that you will never be able to learn if you just succeed all the time.
Yeah.
Like if you win every single time, you're never going to learn what it took to win.
Yep.
And at some point you're going to fail or lose. Like it doesn't matter.
For sure. Yeah, for
who
sure.
You are, at some point.
So now you started out the business and you sold a very, very successful business, and then you started coaching leaders. And there's when I talk to entrepreneurs, once you're coaching your team, then you're moving to the actual leaders of organizations, of big organizations, successful organizations. If you could say, hey, what's the common trait that I see in those great leaders that I get to coach along the way? How would you sum that up as one of their common traits amongst all of them?
Well, I think it probably breaks down into multiple layers. I think one layer is, what do I see in people with entrepreneurial spirit? And that is one thing, because there's success is another thing too, right?
Okay, yeah.
I'm going to say that somebody who's truly got that entrepreneurial vibe and they're not afraid of things, resilience, they're not afraid of anything. Yeah. They're not afraid of failure. They're not afraid of what you think of them. They could care less that you don't like their idea.
Yeah.
Wah, 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 wah. It's just
Yeah.
white noise to them. And that is those people, they
Yeah.
get me going. They get goosebumps on me. Like I'm
Yeah.
ready to go when I see that. Like okay, let's go. What's your idea? Let's go. It excites me.
Yeah.
But where people like somebody who's never going to be an entrepreneur, well, we might have to have everything perfect before we get going. And we
Yeah.
might, it's not the right time.
Sure.
Said no real entrepreneur
Ever.
ever. But business person, that's a different story. Like you could be a business person, just not a creator and an innovator and a spark in your engine. But the engine has other parts that mean a lot, just they
Sure.
don't spark the ignition of it.
Yeah. If you had to think about entrepreneurs as a whole, and let's actually focus a little bit more on new entrepreneurs. What is one of the lessons that you wish new entrepreneurs would actually learn early?
Wow. Today doesn't mark your future.
Wow. That's powerful. That's powerful.
Because when we fail, like, okay, I don't need anybody to be tough on me. I don't need it. Because I'm tough. I'm the toughest person on myself. One of the things that I had to learn was to stop talking to myself sometimes the way I would, like, and excuse me, but like, who the F are you?
Yeah.
What do, you stupid dummy? Why would you do that? When I'd make mistakes, but they were the best mistakes to make. But if someone else told me that, I probably might not have been on your game. I struggled at some points, in the early years when cash flow was really bad. And I struggled with some challenges about understanding about profit and understanding about making money versus just charging money,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Big difference.
And in doing that, I think along that way, when I started to get comfortable with the fact that it was okay to make money as opposed to just doing a great job, I think that also kind of revolutionized me a little bit in terms of that ideal mindset of not thinking that you could fail today if you're going to succeed tomorrow. Sometimes I need to fail. I mean, think about it like an NFL football team practices 6 days a week to play one game.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
But we don't think of that. We think it's always game time. It's always game. It's always game. No, it's not. You got to practice. You got to practice, and you got to learn to practice, and you got to train, and you got to understand, and you got to let go of gameplay sometimes and actually get into practice and learning. And I also think that if you don't learn and you don't grow as a leader, you unfortunately can't let anybody else in your organization grow at.
Yeah. Great segue, because when you're talking about coaching leaders, and some of the leaders you coach have very successful, long-standing businesses, right? So some are new businesses, some are like tenured and whatnot. But how do you get them to balance innovation with tradition in their business?
Good question. Well, first off, I don't think everybody needs to make. Everybody needs to make subtle changes at different points along the way, and not always does innovation mean that they're going to change for success. So, for an example, I do think that things creep up. Like, say for an example, you deny that ChatGPT is going to revolutionize the world. Well, you're self-sabotaging. Like your brain is not working in an entrepreneurial mind. You're going to hurt yourself long term if you don't recognize, not that it's going to, like, I look at that, it's a tool in your tool belt, no different than a hammer or a screwdriver. It's just, oh, I need ChatGPT right now. You pull it out and you use it. So it's a question that I think is a lot of business owners, they lie to themselves. They lie to themselves about the evolution of where things are going because they're comfortable where they are. Mm-hmm. And getting uncomfortable with being uncomfortable is the first step to moving yourself forward. Mm-hmm. So, as an example, for me, one of the things that I would quite often do is I would be the first one to embrace a technology so that I could learn whether it's scary or not. How does it work? What are we doing? How does this feel? And then if it felt good, I'd pass it off to the people that would be using it all the time. And then once I feel that they're going to use it, and then you get their feedback. Now, in any software in particular, if you're making a software for people that you're not asking the people who are using the software, you need their input, right?
Sure.
So it's no different than your team.
Yeah.
So what would it look like if your company changed and used X? Or what would it look like if, and then look for worst case scenario. and come back from there. Or worst case scenario, and then what's best case scenario? What happens if it actually works? What happens if you're going to revolutionize your business by going from A to Z without having to go B, C, D, E, F, like the whole way through?
How do you get leaders to embrace that? Because you're a very curious person. Every conversation I've had with you, you always ask a lot of questions, and I could tell your brain's kind of always moving, kind of thinking, oh, what's that about? What, tell me more about that, right? Which we're like, how do you get leaders that you work with to be a little more curious so they can actually, grow their businesses and or whatever they're trying to grow at the time?
Well, I think you just nailed it. I think you have to learn and be curious about what it is that they want. Not everybody is the same scope or scale or placement in their business cycle. So some people aren't ready to grow. They need to grow personally before they grow professionally, or they need to grow. Their family needs to get some balance in it before they take off professionally, or they're professionally before they go to business. Like there's so many different hills and valleys in that, I guess. So I think one is just really understanding the person you're working with. I think that was probably a misnomer for me in the beginning too, as I thought everybody needs this. Let's go. But it's not true. I mean, the curiosity part is what helps you to learn, and then the more you learn about that person and get them talking about things, quite often a really good self-analyzer sometimes just hears themselves say something.
Yeah.
uh, what?
What I
Because then
just
they hear it and then they realize that they're the ones making the mistake. So
Yeah.
I would say that that's a certain tactic of mine, I think, is
Yeah.
just get talking. And then sometimes you realize like
When they say
it
it,
forces
do you
them to
believe
look
it?
at something.
Yeah. You said something in there in that answer. You said, balance, and you said personal balance. Then you said to grow the business. And do you believe that it is necessary for a person to have balance in their lives before their business grows?
I think you and I've kind of talked about this before. I hate the term work life balance.
Yeah, so do
And
I.
it's not that I don't agree with life balance and so forth. I use the term work life rhythm.
Yeah.
And the reason I say work life rhythm is this. And I didn't have great balance at first and great rhythm at first too, because I didn't pay attention to certain things. I'll
Sure.
give you an example. If I'm an accountant and it's tax time and I say, I'm kind of busy, I need to take a week off, not happening,
Yeah,
right?
not happening.
If you're in snow removal and it snows 50 centimeters, you know what, boss, team, I'm not coming in today because I feel like I got to take a day to myself. Not working. It
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
So that creates this concept in one's brain that I can't. So actually, it's funny. Today I was talking to a few people about that, and it's actually finding the spaces in between.
Yeah.
That's what creates the rhythm and the balance. So if you think of it like a surfer, you get up on the top of a wave and you ride that wave as long as you can. You don't just get off the board halfway because you feel like it. You ride the wave as long as you possibly can, and then you take a break. And I think that's the spaces in between. And I think that, real estate agents would probably be a great example of that. Like they get a sale and then they list another house and then they list another house. Well, oh, sorry, I'm not taking any listings today.
Yeah,
Like
whatever. For sure.
whatever, it's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So they take them and they take them, and they take them. COVID hits, you're selling 2-3 houses a day, and then all of a sudden COVID's off, and you're like, whoa, the market slowed down. Well, if you didn't ride that wave when it was good, you have nobody to blame but yourself. So it's
Yeah.
finding the spaces in between, which, by the way, I think the traditional 9 to 5 kind of goes out the window
Yeah.
when you're an entrepreneur, because you could work like me. When in my early stages of my career, I would actually be at work at 5. And I would get more done between 5 and sort of 7, 8 o'clock because I had time to myself to work on myself and what I needed to get done.
Yeah.
And then now I could give the rest of the day to my team.
Yeah.
And I still do that now, but in a different way. Like I do it more for my mindfulness at that time of day.
Yeah, for sure. If you can go back and you can actually share a moment right now with me on what was a moment that you asked the right question that changed everything.
So if I take it from a landscape perspective, it's kind of a funny story. The
Sure.
first hot tub our team ever installed for someone, put it in, listened to the customer 100% where they wanted it to go, put in a patio, put in a hot tub in the back. And about 2 weeks later, one of my things that I was always call them and say, hey, how's it going? How are you liking your new backyard? How's everything going? Well, this lady let me have it. it's horrible. We hate the placement of the hot tub, da 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 da, on and on and on. I said, okay, well, is it okay if I come over? I'd really like to see what's wrong with it. It's working okay? Oh, it's working fine. Okay. So I stopped by. As we get into the backyard, she tells me, she goes, you know what? Every time we get in the hot tub, when we take our clothes off and we put them up on the side, all of a sudden the neighbors are all looking at us and we're in the hot tub without our clothes on. My first reaction was, you do what? I never asked the question. When you're in this hot tub, are you partying?
Yeah.
Are you enjoying quiet time with your partner?
Yeah.
But what it made me realize was this. I didn't ask the right questions.
Yeah.
So I realized from that moment forward that I had to ask the quote unquote difficult questions. Hey, in your backyard and you're having fun back here, what does fun look like to you? And smile and wait.
Yeah.
And if they don't tell you, then you gave them the opportunity, right? And it's not about being naked in your hot tub. That's not the point of the story. The point of the story is I didn't ask the question, how do you use your hot tub? Like, I just put the hot tub in your backyard.
Yeah. I love that.
Okay, great.
I love that. That is probably, Ed, one of the most unique answers I've gotten. That's great. That's fantastic.
I got a ton of them.
Every time we talk about people, it inspires me. And why is empowering people such a key part of your mission?
Actually, I would use this I'll go to Tech Canada for a second, and I'll say that when I was a member of Tech Canada, I had the pleasure of whenever a speaker would come, I would just zone right in, and I would what am I going to get from this person? And sometimes some tech speakers could be a little salesy on occasion. Those didn't really resonate with me, but the ones that were telling a story, they really resonated with me hard. And I think for me, just sort of circumstantial, I do think that you bring about what you think about, and, that sort of ideal.
So do I.
And I just had a speaker one time that came through that really just hit me in the head about life's purpose. And when I followed the exercise that this gentleman was doing, his name is Brett Pyle, I'll give him full marks right off the bat. The exercise that he put everybody through was very hard and challenging because it actually made most of our group kind of get a little misty-eyed and a little heavy because it was pretty intense. But what it did was it made me realize all the times in my life where I felt the best was when I let somebody use my shoulder to stand up and go the next step on. And I realized that me helping someone get even better at what they're doing that was like a check in my bank account. Nothing better than you come back and, somebody who started working for you, you've done the right training for them. Now they get it. You made a mistake in the previous time and you let that person go to the right course. Okay, boom, we got it. And you just keep seeing those repeat, and the betterment of the person, and then how their life changes, and then how much better that makes you feel. I can't get, that's a high for me. Some people use alcohol or drugs. I don't need that. I just need to watch. Actually, I will be honest, as a tech chair in my group, watching my group come back with positive things about their business, or even something that's horrible happening in their business, and then you're able to, as a group, solve that problem or help them find a solution.
Think differently.
That's all I need. That's good. I'm good for the rest of my life. That's it. That's all I need.
You found your why for sure, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
You've been generous with your time. I just got a couple more questions, Ed, and I know that you've been really generous with your time, but I definitely want to get a couple more in here because it's important to me, and I think it's important to our audience. So, if you could think of one habit or mindset that's helped you stay energized and just keep kind of how you do things after, let's be honest, decades of leadership, what is that mindset or one habit that you make sure that you do?
Well, I think a couple of things, but I think probably the most prominent, I want to get clear too that people who are just there's a technical term for it now. I think it's when you're just too positive and it's, you're just trying to be it's full of garbage.
Almost fake.
It's fake. It's also too, you're trying to be positive about everything, even though you're standing, you gotta, your arm is falling off in a battle wound and oh, it's okay. You'll be fine.
The old Monty Python thing.
Yeah, the whole it's just a flesh wound, Yeah, no, but no, I think it's one is trying to look at the development side of almost any situation that you can. But I also think it's okay to give yourself permission to be a little bit angry and a little bit angry at yourself and a little bit hostile at the situation because it's not healthy to just move on. So I learned that used to for me sometimes last for days and I'd kind of turtle inside and and get really angry. But now I use it the 3 minute rule. So get mad at yourself for 3 minutes, get mad at whatever happened for 3 minutes, do it on your own, nobody else around, scream the F bomb, drop it, whatever you want. I don't care.
Yeah.
But now, what did I learn from this? Never do this again. What did I learn from this? I learned that tactically we can't give this machine to that person, or we can't, I don't know. I need to teach better. I need to train better. That's one. And then the other one is, and I know this is going to sound horrible because no business owner, no business leader wants to hear this, but everything that happens at your company is your fault. Everything.
Yep.
Everything.
I agree with you.
Everything. I don't care if it's a Tim Hortons owner and the person at the drive-thru is rude. It's their fault.
Yep.
But bear with me. It's not their fault, like intrinsically, that they serve the coffee and there's a problem. There's a way to make the better employee. There's a way to help that teammate get better at their job. There's a way to put the right leaders or managers or supervisors in the right spot. You're missing something, or your leadership team is missing something. And if the leadership team is missing something, you're not selecting the right leaders. Like it, I used to beat myself up over stuff that wasn't my fault, but it is my fault in a way. So I know that's a hard concept, but that's one that for me, I think was massive.
There's a couple things I share with leaders all the time, and that's you touched on one, is when we make a mistake. Again, let's take the old, okay, I'm allowed to be mad and whatnot, but then what did I learn from it? But then I encourage them, which I think a lot of leaders don't do, is, hey, that whole thing that we just did was perfect. It was flawless. What did we learn from that? Right? And so many leaders don't actually take time to actually say, wow, that went amazing. Like, I got to double down on that now. And how do I get more from the team based on them just doing an outstanding job at that? That's one. And then your point about it's always your fault as a leader, you're right. One of my favorite sayings is, as a leader, you're always on stage, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It doesn't matter if you roll your eyes a certain way on a decision, or you kind of, like, leaders are always on stage. They say if you rolled your head or your eye, or if your body's not into it, or if you're tired, or if you believe or you don't believe. So as a leader, you're always on stage, and you have to know that people are watching all the time, right? Your team's watching all the time. They're going to see kind of what is the reaction Ed or Jason or Sally or Jim or Martha is having based on that message that they just got, right?
Yeah, and actually in that same sort of, strata is that, like, I'm a firm believer in AAR, after action review. Mm-hmm. I'm a firm believer that, and I know that's a military tactical unit, SEAL team thing, but it doesn't matter. It's revolutionary if you start implementing it. And that, not just that it's an after action review, positive and negative, what worked well, what can we change, what's going to make us better, because every single thing you do can be improved on too. Sure. It doesn't mean that you're not good. It just means that you can always make it better. You can always improve. You can always find another way to maybe do it faster, maybe do it more efficient, more cost effective. Like, there's all sorts of things.
Sure.
But the other big thing in that is to make sure that everyone at the table has an equal ability to be heard. So not just like, the leader saying, this is how we're going to solve the problem. It's also your field workers, your staff, your teammates. They all have an equal voice when it comes to an after action review, so that everybody can give that honest feedback. If they don't get that sort of response from leadership at any level, like, hey, have you guys ever thought of this? Yeah, we thought about that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Can you tell me why that didn't work 10 years ago? Because 10 years was a long time. Maybe it's going to change now, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a good enough answer. It's like, as a parent, when you say, you can't do that. Why? Because.
Yeah. That is.
Hey, as a parent, I did that too sometimes.
Yeah, so did I.
It's not a good answer. It's not a fair answer.
And it's important to actually draw opinions and feedback from every member of the team, not just the vocal ones, because we always have those members on our team that are vocal and they just give you their opinion loud and proud all the time. It's how do we set up a safe room or a safe place for the people that are a little more hesitant, a little more reserved? How do we give them an opportunity to speak? Because when we give them an opportunity to speak, because they've thought about it a little more maybe, and we get everybody's opinion, we make a better decision as a leader and as a team.
Do you know, actually, I always think of one thing in particular. Our company was very big in residential snow. And, one of the things we used to have, our supervisor, he would run around with every single tool possible. He had to fix a tractor if it broke down during a storm. And one of the operators made the comment, I could change my own shear pin if I just had all the right tools.
Wow. Yeah.
You know,
There you go.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
I know that sounds like it's common knowledge, but it wasn't back then. Like, we were the second company in Ottawa to start using tractors for residential snow removal.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, for us, that was okay, great, let's go. Like, and I remember the supervisor at the time, that was like a mind blow for him too. It was like, oh, thank God, I don't have to change shear pins all the time. you know.
And we've gone kind of full round. We've gone from the start to tech to kind of your thoughts on leadership and whatnot. I'm going to ask you one last question to get you back to your day. And the question is this: if years and years and years from now, I say, "Hey, that Ed Hansen guy, what do you want your legacy to be with leaders and teammates that you've worked with around the world?"
Wow, that's a heavy question.
Yeah, it's heavy.
There's a saying that a man, and I'm sure I should say a human, but a person dies twice. They die first when they pass, and they die secondly when they're not spoken about anymore. So in First Nations culture, 7 generations back, 7 generations forward, you want to make sure that if you're doing something today, you're marking it for 7 generations forward. So, but it's a tough question because I think there's a lot of vanity to it, and there's probably a lot of narcissism to it. Yeah. But if I was to be upfront and frank, I think that for me, I think it would be that if somebody was to mention me, after I'm gone, and somebody says, hey, what about that Ed Hansen guy? They would say, wow, that guy really cared.
Yeah. I love that. And I'll actually give you a little info on that. You do care, and it's evident, and it oozes out. So you absolutely create belief. I'm a big believer that belief fuels passion, and in my opinion, passion rarely fails. So, Ed, I want to thank you for everything you do for leaders and coaching people along the way. You made better people. People remember their best leader. They remember their worst leader. Trust me, they remember both, right? And I think you're going to go down to many people as one of their best coaches, one of their best leaders, because what you just said there, it is evident that you care. So with that, I will let you get back to your day, and I thank you for your time and being generous with it, and I look forward to many more conversations.
Jason, I appreciate this, and I appreciate you. And for those that listen to your podcast, I also feel the same. You're a person who cares. You care about growth. You care about people. You care about watching them succeed. And when you hear about it, I've seen it over the, I don't know, however many years we've known each other. I'm proud to consider you a friend, man. So thank you very much. Really appreciate you, brother.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed.
Okay, man.
If you loved that session and that conversation as much as I did, would love to have you join our People Playbook community in the link below.